This is Jake and I right before the UFC weigh-in in Las Vegas, and voila, the muscles swell up and look full.
So in my opinion, that is it right there. There is really no downside other than like, you know, health effects down the road maybe to like adding in some, like a little bit of testosterone or a little bit of growth hormone here and there, whatever. Because you got to think about it, like as an actor, there's no testing, there's no like, I want to do this thing naturally, even though a lot of them say that. It's essentially a makeup. It doesn't matter if it's natural or not. It's just so they can look like the thing that they aren't. I mean, wouldn't you do that if you were gonna go on there with your shirt off?
I got a tip for you. Don't let no one get this close.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're gonna be taking a look at Jake Gyllenhaal's workout to get his ridiculous Roadhouse body. And this is part of the Train Like series by Men's Health. What I can say before even watching it is like, I'm not the biggest fan of them because they seem to be like all bark, no bite. Like it's not very beneficial. It's motivating to see these bodies work, but I have a few issues that, you know, I'm probably likely gonna run into here. So that's all I'm gonna preface this video with. Let's dive right into it. Let's get going. Today's video is sponsored by Transparent Labs. Now, I think the greatest thing about this minimum amount of ingredients here: grass-fed whey protein isolate, peanut flour, cocoa powder, natural chocolate flavor, sodium chloride, and stevia extract. Super basic. This flavor is chocolate peanut butter. I think it's incredible. I'm just gonna take 1 scoop of the bulk pre-workout here. 200 milligrams caffeine, L-theanine, all the basic stuff. I love this brand. It is Informed Choice approved, meaning that if you compete in anything that's WADA or USADA tested, these are good to go. Click the link in the description and use code Zack at checkout.
Hi, I'm Jason Walsh. I'm coming to you from my studio Rise Movement in Los Angeles, California, and talk to you about Jake Gyllenhaal and the training that we did for Roadhouse.
Very quickly, like I want to talk about this character. I think his name's Dalton. I forget Patrick Swayze's character in Roadhouse, but like if we think about Roadhouse and Dalton's particular, I don't know if he was like hitting the weight room in the way that these guys are today. And you know, it was the 80s, I believe, so you know, things like steroids were available, but who knows? Patrick Swayze, he's just a ripped, lean guy. Like genetically looked incredible. It's Patrick fucking Swayze, you know? So it wasn't as if he had to be this kind of jacked, juggernaut looking dude. And that's often what, okay, so let's just say you got to put on a bunch of weight because you're playing a superhero. Okay, well now we know we're just going to hammer, you know, essentially become a bodybuilder. And we're going to use a lot of drugs to do that. And that's just what we're gonna do. Make sure everything is dialed in. You're a hard-working athlete, but the idea is the aesthetic of a supernatural human being. For this one though, it's like, okay, well, let's try to get you as close as we can to like a UFC fighter on the night of a fight. So it's less unrealistic in the sense of like looking like a fucking bodybuilder. Having said that, you know, the drugs discussion we can dive into in a little bit. But it's slightly different in that way.
Yeah, look at your stomach.
Never been done before. It's real. Don't mess around.
Not only did Jake need aesthetics, but needed to perform stunts across from Conor McGregor, who has also never performed stunts on screen.
Hey, fellas.
So Jake needed athleticism, resiliency, and overall strength.
They're trying to get Jake Gyllenhaal to perform athletically, and so they're trying to dial in performance, but you know, with that comes the aesthetic of being an athletic looking body. And what I imagine we're gonna see here is a lot of like specificity that's going to be very difficult to track progress. It's gonna be like this generalized program and this generalized mentality. And there's a term that I've used actually in this called weaponized specificity. And it's kind of like okay, if somebody saw an athlete doing squats or bench press or things that drive hypertrophy or drive strength to a specific place, they would say, well, hardly ever do you see a football player laying down and bench pressing, and all those muscles are so flashy and things of that nature. And I call that weaponized specificity because if you are specifically training for your sport, and let's say it's fighting, okay? You are getting an abnormal amount of specific training in that sport. And the goal is over the course of your camp to be overloading that and then to taper off. So the progressive overload of specific training will occur on the mats. So I train a elite grappler. His name's Haisam Raida. And he, for me, it's like, okay, we are trying to drive adaptation in specific manners that he cannot get outside of the mats. So the things that we do are actually very general strength training, and they're safe. They're large ranges of motion, which have been proven to drive hypertrophy, things of that nature, but they're very kind of basic maneuvers. And because I'm not trying to give him this like crazy generalized MMA kind of grappling thing, right? Because he's on the mats 2 times a day. And so with someone like Jake Gyllenhaal, well, he's acting and he's supposed to get that general training. So I imagine in these sessions, they're not really going to be able to drive adaptation towards muscle growth. They're going to just kind of take this general approach to just being athletic. And so that depends a lot more on Jake Gyllenhaal's genetics and his work, not just in the gym, but like in the kitchen, like eating perfectly and staying dialed in that sense. But I haven't seen what they're doing yet. This is just my estimation as to what's going to happen.
I got a tip for you. Don't let no one get this close.
Generally, we spend a few minutes each session moving, trying to get the core body to mature up before moving into some sort of mobility, which you see here with the stick, which is a great tool to help increase range of motion.
Warm-ups are a tricky one to kind of get across, even though it should be very simple to understand. The way that I kind of treat warm-ups is like, what can I do so that we don't have to use much mental acuity and get the body generally warm and then specifically warm towards the thing that we're going to do. I'll use Haisam as an example because he is in this category of martial arts. What we're going to do is a lot of full range of motion, air squatting, a lot of lunges. Things are specific, but they're also just not mentally taxing and they don't hurt. They're just very low intensity. And what we're going to do is just raise the intensity and it kind of flows into our first working set. So really, like, honest to God, if Haisam feels all right, we can put the barbell on his back and start just like slowly squatting and hitting deep ranges of motion, maybe pausing in the bottom position of a squat. It's not crazy to do something like that if you're capable of it. I'm not a big fan of being like, okay, well, sit on the foam roller, stretch, great. Now, do this weird kind of pre-programmed, pre-warm-up type of deal. My thing is like, we're going to drive adaptation in the legs today. Let's get going on the legs and let's warm up into the working sets rather than warm up, stop, working sets. You see, like that stop is a drain on mental acuity and I have to get that guy started up again. Again, not saying that he's doing that. That's just my overarching thesis on warming up.
The Proteus is an amazing piece of equipment used mostly by performance centers to help train athletes in every plane of motion and also to help increase power production. We use it primarily for priming the nervous system, proprioception, learning movement patterns, and a lot for warming up joints and metabolic training.
No Proteus, shadow box for 30 seconds is what this says on the side. 30 off for 3 to 4 rounds. Cool, great.
Isometrics are a staple here at Rise Movement. We use them all the time to help increase strength and stamina at different joint angles.
Body weight, isometric row, great exercise, shoulder stability, just building your back. I'm getting the vibe from this that it's just this generalized athletic training, which, I think it obviously can help a lot of people, but it bears repeating that like somebody who's coming to the gym, like you need to have an understanding of progressive overload and being able to track progress and make gains in that way. Like long ranges of motion, trying to increase intensity over time, movements that are tried and true, those are very, very important for strength training. Elevating your heart rate, being able to do things in zone 2 and fluttering with zone 3, and then getting a lot of steps in throughout the day. Those are great for cardio. Maybe you can mix the two. Maybe you can do some sort of CrossFit type of thing where you mix the two. But again, it seems like this is just like generalized, keep moving, Jake, like keep doing all this stuff. You know, body weight isometric hold for 30 seconds, great, that's gonna make a difference. It absolutely will, but to a certain extent. Again, it's very difficult for me to kind of describe this. I don't know how many sets they're doing of that, but they're basically saying isometrics are great, which they are, but that doesn't really do much for, you know, describing the program.
Keep his work capacity up, keep him moving, keep him sweating, keep burning fat. We still want the heavy stimulus, so we do a lot of heavy sled work.
He's saying that they're keeping the pace going throughout the training. This is essentially just a HIIT, you know, high intensity interval training type of workout, which is fantastic to just burn calories. Like metabolically, it's incredible. You get a stimulus beyond just, you know, running on a treadmill, sprinting, or some sort of cardio. You're mixing movements and you're going at a pace where, like, generally the body, it's just thermodynamically just rapid, and the you know, the metabolic effect of this style of training is definitely proven, and it's definitely important. But again, it's hard to see kind of the gains that you can make, right? Like if the goal is hypertrophy, like you need to attack it in a way that like avoids other things, and it needs to be very, you know, specific. This is where, like, you know, Dr. Mike, I feel like I'm kind of would echo the things that he says. You know, this generalized, super generalized training, it works for some people at some time. But again, what are we aiming for? Something like this, you know, I'll make an assessment at the end, but I'm assuming that it's kind of like, look, Jake, you're a good looking guy. We can probably put on a little bit of muscle, but this whole thing right here is to just, it's like a hard athletic practice, right? It's essentially an MMA session with weights, and super effective. The guy ends up looking ridiculous, but I don't know that this sort of thing works for the average person. I wouldn't do this drill right here. Right, I just straight up wouldn't do the, you know, the army crawl or the Spider-Man crawl with the weighted sled. I would again try to do something less general, maybe I think I would call it. But you know, you could do like walking lunges with weights in your hands. You know, something that isn't just like very weirdly taxing without creating adaptation. Again, that's another Dr. Mike-ism. Like you're just taxing the overall body, creating generalized fatigue that does not drive adaptation.
Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Stress, adapt, recover, on repeat for well over a year. That's discipline. That's patience. That's commitment.
So that's it, right? That, if that is the thesis around this style of training. Being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and do that enough times and create it into your lifestyle, and you're gonna look very good. It's very true, guys. Like, so I don't want to discredit this entirely, but it's like, it's a very specifically procured style of training that I see a lot amongst celebrities, people that have so many things dialed in throughout their day, and literally all they're doing is training, eating, sleeping, and waiting to go on set. And so, yeah, I mean, this is pretty effective training in that way.
We always keep the heavy work one way, shape, or form, whether it's squats or deadlifts, and the variations thereof. We want to keep the muscle.
3 to 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. Hey, we're on to something here. You know, I don't, it's hard for me to say the way that I would organize the training, but look, Those squats had great range of motion. You know, he did the safety bar squats so he could just focus on the lower body. 3 to 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps, that's strength training. That's just, let's get stronger. You know, it's not let's destroy the fucking legs with endless, you know, extensions and things of that nature. And a safety bar squat for 3 to 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps, great protocol. Especially because you can track over time with progressive overload, that sort of thing. It's weird though, because that is the only thing so far that I've seen that you can kind of track. Maybe they're tracking, you know, in these other exercises, they can do like the first 2 weeks, you know, 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off. And the next few weeks, they're doing 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And they're tracking the amount of time that the guy's actually working. That is progressive overload in other directions. There's so many variables, you just have to keep track of them. But again, this is he has to get in his like athleticism here, so he can't have as much pointed work. That's a very generalized, you know, it's lower body focused, the safety bar squat, but you will get generally very strong from that. So kudos to them. Again, great range of motion. I'm cool with that.
Grip work is essential as it seems to be one of the limiting factors in the gym. We pepper in various exercises to keep grip tight.
Mostly with grip, I just see people kind of tack it on at the end of a workout, have fun with it. The things that I would do are more of like heavy, you know, carries in your hands, and just again working on general strength. The order of exercise here is very strange. You know, doing all these things that are going to tax you, and then getting under the barbell and going heavy. What I've learned, you know, in my own training to become certified in strength and conditioning, and this is like best practice amongst strength and conditioning coaches, is that you want to do things that are powerful first, and then strength, and then you kind of finish with hypertrophy. You can actually mix that up. It's not the end of the world to do, you know, this longer kind of cardio intensive generalized session and going into the squats. It just depends on what your goals are. And that's what it seems like how it was for this, right? Like if today we're gonna do heavy ass squats, we're probably not gonna do a really intense, you know, metabolic conditioning circuit beforehand. However, that sort of thing has happened in CrossFit. And you'd be shocked at how strong you can feel when you're really warm. You're like, you know, you're drenched in sweat and you did a workout, and now I'm like, hey, do something heavy. You actually feel like you're super warm, if that makes sense. It's almost as if that first portion of the workout wasn't really a workout, it was just a warm-up. But anyways, let's move on here.
Keeping the body in check with offset loading and movements more imperative to sport.
The lunges, which are great, but it just seems like very intense circuit training. To me, it seems like, again, we have this full body kind of movement stuff. You're creating adaptation in this sense of like the total body is burning a lot of calories and will continue to burn a lot of calories throughout the day. That is more athletic based. If he was on the mats, I would never train him like that, but it seems like he's not really on the mats. Okay, so now we're moving on to a floor press. Now I'm kind of like, why would you do the floor press when you can do a bench press? Why would you? We're so worried, I'm assuming, let's just finish off after this, but I'm assuming it's like, okay, we protect the shoulder. Great, but why not teach the shoulder? Why not create the capability, the capacity of the shoulder to use those ranges of motion? This is why progressive overload exists. When you say that you do floor press to protect the shoulder, what you're saying is any and all versions of things that have range of motion that go to here is dangerous. It doesn't matter what the load is. Right? That's why we do what we do. And that's part of why like weaponized specificity is a term that I've come up with, and it's something that I see a lot with trainers. So right here it says the floor press allows you to train the chest heavy by limiting range of motion. Again, I don't know how much we want to limit range of motion. This is more stress on the triceps than anything. It's not as general as they think it is. They're also great for anyone with shoulder issues. Again, we're protecting the shoulder rather than making the shoulder more capable. 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps I don't know about that. You know, again, I'll put on my Dr. Mike bald cap here. It's like, guys, let's create adaptation. We can do this. 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps, like unless you're warming the fuck up and then going for max weight, which I know they're not doing, then 2 sets of something is just not going to be the move. So, yeah.
The diet part of this is really critical for maintaining and looking a certain way. It's not something that's sustainable, but it can be done with the right people in place. There's a big team that helped get us through this.
So in my opinion, that is it right there, right? Like it's just diet, all of this. Like this dude looks the way that he does because of diet. If we want to talk about, you know, performance enhancing drugs, I don't know. I want to stay out of it. You guys can comment what you want. There is really no downside other than like, you know, health effects down the road maybe to like adding in some, like a little bit of testosterone or a little bit of growth hormone here and there or whatever. Because you got to think about it, like as an actor, there's no test and there's no testing. There's no like, I want to do this thing naturally, even though a lot of them say that, okay? And a lot of them are wrong for saying things like that. But it's like their costume is their body. So, you know, it's essentially a makeup. It doesn't matter if it's natural or not. It's just so they can look like the thing that they aren't, right? So, but still, it's like nutrition of all of this training that we're seeing. The nutrition is like 30 times more important. If the training was like, hey guys, we can measurably take someone and put more weight on them with this program that is specifically targeting this spot, then yes, that is pretty important. But again, if they're saying, hey, the chest is being specifically targeted here, I would say, no, it's not. It is minorly. And for someone who's completely untrained, like, yeah, 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps in the floor press, they're going to feel sore. They're actually going to have damage done to those muscle tissues. And if they eat adequate protein, they'll put on muscle. But two sets of 10 to 12 reps, that's not a good program. So we're looking at nutrition and, again, generalized training that is very unrealistic. And one of the things he said here is like, it's not sustainable. Right? These guys essentially, they have this crazy camp leading up to looking as shredded as they can. And it's not something that they're going to continue to do 24/7. They're going to go off and hide off and look a certain way. However, I'm sure they maintain some level of fitness. So here we have chain push-ups. I like this. I like this way more than the floor press. We have full range of motion here. And I really like the loading on the hips to reinforce keeping your hips high, because I think a lot of times people end up bringing their hips down in the pull-ups. If you have a partner that can load you, that's pretty cool with the chain. Again, 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps.
Cross-lateral loading is very important to all sports, especially to MMA fight training. These come in various forms, but this is one of my favorites.
I actually like this. Sure, that's shocking to you guys. This cross-lateral, raise and push. I like this. As far as rotation goes, look at the range of motion here on this. It's great. He's stretching the shit out of his obliques and coming through. I like that. This I don't. This I'm not a big fan of. You're creating a stability issue in something that, again, like, where's our adaptation? It's the obliques, it's the rotational force. You're making it more difficult with stability training. I'm not a fan. But the thing beforehand, good. I like that. Just fucking stretching and pulling through. I want to try those, actually. Cardio, conditioning, again, it's kind of create this deficit probably that he's on, this crazy fucking deficit, and just keep him charging metabolically.
This is Jake and I right before the UFC weigh-in in Las Vegas. Taking a little bit of sugar, get a lot of reps in, push-ups, sit-ups, and voila. The muscles swell up and look full.
I worked with Jake for years prior. I knew he had what it was going to take to make this.
So they take a bunch of glucose, sugar, whatever it may be, like carbs, and then do a pump workout just so they can go on stage and have their muscles swell up with some water, or I don't even know if it's water, whatever. Their muscles just swell up, you know, especially for someone who's hasn't been consuming glucose or you know, carbs or things like that are fast acting. You add that into the equation, you do a pump workout and you get a huge pump, then you go on screen. This is a known thing in Hollywood that everyone does. I mean, wouldn't you do that if you were gonna go on there with your shirt off?
Unless you've trained like this, you just don't understand. To take the long road, to take the hard road, to take the high road, to do this clean, no shortcuts. But what you earn, what you gain along the way by taking these roads is unlike anything else. It's yours. You built it, you earn it.
Okay, so look, all in all, you know, the program, it's hard to gauge how effective it is. It's the general thing of like, we're gonna make this dude work hard, burn a ton of calories, you know, maybe create some adaptations in the muscles, create some sort of level of hypertrophy, and we're gonna control every little variable, and the guy's gonna work fucking incredibly hard. Like, the results speak for themselves. So in that specific scenario, right, this dude basically deserves an A+, his trainer, and Jake, really. Like, the trainer just kind of facilitates this thing, and then Jake works really fucking hard and makes sure he eats right and all of that stuff. And then looks ridiculous on screen. Like that's, you know, the results speak for themselves. I can't bitch about it. Like, literally I can't. If I was, that'd be stupid. However, like, how well this translates, I think it doesn't translate well at all. I would not go about training, you know, someone, even for performance in this manner, to a certain extent. You know, I love to understand, what are we doing? Like, what exactly are we doing? Are we gonna do those safety bar squats? Great. Like, let's see how much we can push the muscle gain in that area. And you know, or the same thing with the chest. Like, there's 4 total sets of chest. Like, I find that hard to believe if you're trying to make any sort of gains in that area, right? We only saw 4 sets of pressing movements specifically. But again, results speak for themselves. He looked exactly the way they wanted him to. I haven't even seen the movie. I'll probably watch it tonight. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comment section. I appreciate you for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.